Every time you get on YouTube, everybody talks about, the best bait, the best bait, the best bait, or it's all about to kill, it's all about to kill. Well, I'm here to tell you there's a whole lot more that goes into bear hunting than all about to kill. Is a few myths and about the best bait out there for bear baiting. So, criticism and everything else, because everybody's always got the best bait, the best bait. Good morning. My name is Tom. I come to you from the Rustic log cabin in Northern Maine. Welcome to my channel today. Get yourself a cup of coffee. Well, if you've been following any of the videos for the last few days, the last 2 or 3 weeks, we're into the bear hunt hot and heavy now, the 2022 bear hunt. And I've been bringing you along from the very beginning. If you want to follow this series, this will be number 5. Every time you get on YouTube, everybody talks about, the best bait, the best bait, the best bait, or it's all about to kill, it's all about to kill. Well, I'm here to tell you there's a whole lot more that goes into bear hunting than all about to kill. And all about the best bait, the best bait, the best bait. So that's what today's video is about, is a few myths and about the best bait out there for bear baiting. So I'm sure this will draw a lot of attention as far as criticism and everything else, because everybody's always got the best bait, the best bait. So I can only go by my experience, and I'm going to share with you my experience. I do not consider any of my baits the best bait. And as we get into this a little bit further, I will explain what I mean by I don't consider any of my baits the very best bait. And if you're not using this kind of bait, you don't have a chance of getting the Maine black bear. That is a myth from where it begun. So let's get on with today. But what I really want to show you today is off here to my left. Some of you guys have been following the videos. This is the power bait mixer that I was talking about a couple of videos back. I'm trying to come up with a good name for it. Right now, it's Betty Crocker doesn't have anything on this. This is a power drill left over from my jacking days. This is a drill that's powerful enough to lift up a house. I have 2 of them. I have converted this one into a cake mixer, or a bear bait mixer, whatever you want to call it. Eventually we'll come up with a name. It is setting in a 55-gallon drum with a 8-inch ice auger bit that goes clear to the bottom of the drum, and I can slide it all around. The reason that I wanted a mixer like this, and I do think it's important, and it comes from personal experience. I think your bait should be very well mixed. What I mean by that is like dry mix. If you're cooking in your own kitchen, when you stir up a batter, you don't want any dry stuff down in there. Well, I kind of think bear bait is the same thing. And that comes from personal experience of baits that I've used in the past. Now, a lot of times I use a bread as a filler, and it's never been hard to get your hands onto. We have bread stores here in the state of Maine, leftover bread, day-old bread. They bring it in by the truckloads, and they're on the back shelf, and you could buy it by the truckload. You could literally go in and buy as much as you wanted. You just put your name, say I'm coming in on Tuesday, I would like 7 lifts of bread. And there was 7 lifts that are as tall as you are. At $13 a lift, so it was really cheap bait. So I relied on that a lot in years gone by. But this year, for whatever reason, there is no leftover bread at the bread store. None, zero at all. I've got my name on a list. I call every Monday. And I just would like a couple of lifts because I've got so much other stuff going on that as far as the bait this year, that I just would like to have a couple of lifts this time. In the past, I've gone as many, I'd go down and pick up 7 or 8 lifts, 10 lifts every week. and then I would truck that up to the Rustic log cabin. Because I only check the bait up there once a week, it's a long haul, so I tried to haul in as much as I could and then have it last for the week. And then when I came back on the end of the week, then I would top off my barrels again. So that's why I use so much bread. Getting back to this mixer. You mix all this stuff by hand if you don't have something like this. So there's always going to be dry spots in your mix, or you're going to have way too much liquid. I would pour in a little extra liquid. This is cooking oil. Pour in some extra of that to get it so it was a little easier to stir with a stick. But in some of my stuff I like to play with, I didn't want that rich of a mixture of cooking oil in there. So by coming up with this, I can really get a good stir on my bait now. And I'll take this out of the drum before this video ends so you can get a good look at this. But this thing works really good. Now, I haven't mixed any bait with it yet, but the drill turns that auger down in there nicely. An ice auger has a tendency to pull stuff up, just like when you're drilling ice for ice fishing. So it'll do the same thing in that barrel for me. So the reason I wanted it this year was I got a really good deal on cow grain this year. There's the finishing off cow grain that I was able to get for $6 a bag. Now I can't go through everything I want in this video, so this is a series that's going to play on. I'm going to go through some of the stuff that I've got, and then in the next video we'll actually be mixing the bait, and I'll actually be building my bait. But today I wanted to talk about the different things that goes into my bait, and each year is different. Just because if you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm always trying to do things as cheap as possible. So this is no different on this bear bait. Like I said, years gone by, I could buy bread for $13 a stack, so that was cheap. But what I found out with the bread was it was very difficult to get it completely mixed with the oil. So, you know, you'd take your bait, your bread, you'd throw it in the drum, then you'd toss in some oil, you'd reach in there with a stick and stir it up. But the stuff in the bottom didn't have anything on it. And one thing about bears is they don't like anything that is moldy or spoiled. So the bread down in the bottom, because it wasn't coated with oil and sugars and I have maple syrup here, because that bread down in the bottom wasn't coated enough, it would mold during the week. They wouldn't eat that at all. Not one slice of that moldy bread. I would, you know, that particular year, I'd have this much bait. I'd have 2 feet of bait down in that 55-gallon drum that was moldy, and the bears wouldn't eat it. So, you know, people that think you'd throw anything out there and they'll eat it, they won't. They won't eat spoiled meat, and they won't eat moldy bread. So I would have to dump that on the ground and start over. Well, there's so much that goes into getting bait out into the bush that you don't want any bait to be wasted. And if it's wasted, then they could run out of bait 2 or 3 days before you get there. Like I said, I was only going up once a week to fill the barrels. So you don't want them running out, and you don't want your bait spoiling. So my idea of this is once that is coated in this oil, I'm not using bread, so turning to mold quick, I'm not worried about this year. This year, like I said, I got a really good deal on the grain that's finishing off for beef, and we're gonna get into why I think that's better anyways. I've switched my bait over the years from a pastry kind of diet, you know, bread and donuts and all of that. I've switched that over now to something that's probably a little more nutritious for the bear, because I think that's what they're looking for. We can use the sweets and we can use all of that first week to get them in, but after a while, if you were going to bait for the entire month, it's like anything. The bears want a variety, you want a variety. What bears like to eat are exactly what you like to eat. So if you eat a bunch of donuts every day for 2 weeks, you're going to want something different. So I kind of switched up my bait a little bit. Now I go with some sweet bait, I'm gonna have 3 barrels out there, basically because I'm gonna have my sweet bait, which is my syrups and all of that, and I'm gonna mix it in with that grain, and that's going to be their sweet diet. And then besides that, I'm going to have a more nutritious barrel that's going to be more of the cow grain. I've got molasses, cattle molasses that'll be stirred into that, and maybe not quite so much sugars. What I want to see is do they like this? You know what I mean? If they, they always love the sweets. That's never a problem getting them to eat the sweets. But you want them to have a diet at your bait site that they're satisfied with, so that they don't move on. You don't want them moving on to someone else's bait if they're away or whatever. If they're close enough to your bait and the bears can go back and forth, you kind of want them at your own bait. And I think I arrive at that by having a mixture. We're going to have the sweets, we're going to have the grain. So mixing that grain with this oil and different things, this little power grinder mixer is really going to do the job as far as I'm concerned. I started to say a minute ago, we were talking about all these different ingredients that I have for putting a bear bait together. And we were talking about, I'm gonna, obviously this video is getting way too long, but you don't need all of this stuff. Like I said, I do it because I like to, and I have fun doing it. But if you wanted to keep it simple, and this channel is all about keeping it simple, stupid, there's a very simple recipe. It will work. There's not a doubt in my mind that it won't work. When I go up to the Rustic log cabin for a quick trap week or 2, if that's what it takes, then that's the bait that I'll be bringing, because it's easy to bring, easy to make. I can bring up plenty, and with a trap you don't need that much bait anyways. With a trap you only need about that much bait, couple pounds at the most. And all that is whole kernel corn and some kind of syrup. That's it. If you bear baited with just that, 50-pound bag of whole kernel corn and some syrup. This is maple syrup. Corn syrup is another good one. Cherry syrup. I make my own cherry syrup. That would be a good one. Any kind of syrup put onto that corn is more than enough bait for bear baiting. Especially for bear trap baiting. So if this peanut butter doesn't work down in the trap, down in the dummy trap, and this fluffer doesn't work down in the dummy trap, then I will definitely be putting corn with syrup down in the dummy trap as well as my trap when I actually set the bear trap. So I just wanted to add that to this video because I don't want to discourage anybody from thinking that so much of this is so much money in it. There is money, there's a lot of money in it because of playing around with the bears. You can keep it simple down to when I say a lot, I'm not talking a ton of money. I like to keep it down. I don't think I mentioned I bought my cow grain for $6 a bag. It's normally $17 a bag. It was a out of date thing that I guess they only keep the grain on the shelf for 90 days, and this grain hadn't sold, so they were just eliminating the stock. I was there at the right time, and I was able to purchase all of that cow grain for $6 a bag. So I picked up, 1,600 pounds of cow grain for under $100. That's pretty cheap bait. I've got it in 55-gallon drums, sealed. I'm going to leave it down here all winter. I'm going to monitor it and check on it. And if it looks the same, smells the same as right now, next year, then I've got my bait for next year as well. Now in there this year, like I said, I'll get into the putting it together in the next video. This year, I've got a couple extra things. This is a really strong blueberry mix. You take the lid off that stuff and boy, doesn't that smell like a really strong blueberry. You don't dump the whole thing in. You dump in that grain. I'll be dumping in a couple of cups of this to stir in. I also have a gallon of extract, vanilla. That same thing there, I'll be probably putting a couple of cups in when I make up a batch. A batch will be 3/4 of this drum, and then out of this drum I will put it into 5-gallon buckets for transport into the woods. But especially this year, I've got no crap that's going into the woods as far as you know, just household scraps and stuff like that. Number one, the bear's gonna eat on this for 2 or 3 weeks. So it's like a beef critter. You would never finish off a beef critter with crappy food. Just like if you were raising a pig. You would never finish off a pig with the crappy food. At least I never did when I had both a cattle and had pigs. We always finished them off with a good bag of corn. Like the pigs especially, I finished them off with whole kernel corn. They ate 100 pounds of that, and at the end of that, then they went to the slaughterhouse, and I just thought that was a better way to finish off a pig. Same thing with the cows. Give them a better feed of grain, and just, you know, we were raising cows. We go to the bread store, and because the bread really puts fat on them, so you end up with a really marbly fat meat. So when we was feeding cows for the freezer, they got a lot of bread from the bread store because it was cheap. And then at the end we'd finish them off with grain and all of that, and it made for a good tasting cow. Well, I think that's the same thing with the bears. I don't think it's a good idea to finish them off with crap food that last month, just like a beef critter. So anyway, that's why all of that. Let's see, I think we've covered all this. I got other stuff I know I've already shown. I got some fluffernutter. That's just, I like to have fun with these bears. And that brings me to another point. You can keep bear bait as simple as you want. It does not need to be complicated at all. You don't need every ointment that's out there and every product that is out there to get bears to come into your bait. But I like to have fun with it. I like to watch the bears. I enjoy feeding the bears. So I like to play with these different things. This year, the bait that I'm using is completely different than the last one. The last one was popcorn. I sat out here and popped popcorn every week in between trips. I popped it out by the fire pit over a Bunsen burner, and I was popping 55-gallon drumfuls of popcorn, and I was putting on a cherry syrup that I made right in the driveway. Real easy recipe. I will get into that for you. But so that's what I brought up that year. I like a bait that the bear can't lug off. You know, if you pull in a big chunk of something, the bear can get there, he can grab it, and he can run, and he can go eat it out in the bushes, and then come back for another piece. I want that bear to be right there at the barrel so that I can get a great shot. I don't want him running in to grab a piece and run off. So the popcorn was perfect for that. You know, hundreds of thousands of kernels of popcorn. He had to stay right there and eat it, and they did. When I got there at the end of the week, they had eaten every piece of popcorn that was in them barrels. And that was the year I had a dozen bears coming into that one site. So there was no popcorn left at the end of the week when I got there. They literally ate every kernel of popcorn. So with this grain mixture I'm working with this year, that's the same thing. It's going to be more like a thick oatmeal down in my drums. And I plan on baiting every 2 days, maybe every 3. We'll see how it goes. And then as I get closer to where I want to trap, then I'm going to back off the bait that's in the barrels and more concentrate on the bait that is in the bear trap. What I want to do is I want to shoot 2 bears this year. You can take one with a rifle and you can take one with a trap. So that's why we're setting this up. This is my first year bear trapping, so I'm not sure if combining the two side by side will work or not. I'm going to find out. If it doesn't, I have permission somewhere else to set out my trap, as well as I have the rustic log cabin at the top of the state. So I do plan on, if I don't have any luck down here getting my bear trap, then I am going to bring up all the supplies necessary and go up to the Rustic log cabin, set out my bear trap, and wait that week. Check it every day and wait that week for the bear. Usually I get bears up there instantly, and once I put the bait out there, I just instantly get bears on my bait. So if that would happen, then that would be great. But we'll see what happens. My goal is to take 2 bears from Beaver Creek Outpost. Been working very hard on that outpost for the last 2 summers. We're coming to an end. I can see the project coming to an end. So I think I'm going to wrap this up with, I'm going to take this out of the barrel, going to give you a show, and then I will see you next week. So have a good cup of coffee with me this morning, and bear season is upon us. That right there is 20 gallons of cooking oil. Behind there, them 3 drums is filled with cow grain. 1 refrigerator, 1 freezer. The other chest freezer is dead. It's for grain storage. The freezer is for freezing up my bear meat. And the other freezer is for getting the animal in there and getting it chilled while I will be butchering. This is my bait station for making bait. Just a cooler place, and it's all set up, so all I have to do is come down and make bait.